Hey there, Manna Church. I'm about to start a series in the midst of our Morning Manna. In fact, right when we started this whole Morning Manna idea, I thought of this series. And here it is, 12 lessons from 12 kings. What I want to do is kind of tell you the story of 12 different kings in either Israel or Judah, and then just one idea, one take-home point, one thing that we can all apply to our lives from their story. And I'm going to start off with the story of Saul. Saul is the first king in Israel. In fact, Samuel is leading the people of Israel as the prophet, and the people come to him and say, we want a king. And God had told him they're going to want a king. And so he looks for the king. And that's where Saul enters the picture. Saul's a good-looking guy. He's a foot taller, the scripture tells us, than everybody else around him. And Saul is a very interesting character in scripture. He does well. He prophesies. We hear a story about that. He leads the Israelites into victory over their enemies. We hear stories about that. At the same time, Saul's a conflicted guy. He has problems with David. He kind of chases David. He tries to kill him. He pursues David with the worst of intent. And he calls up Samuel's spirit through a necromancer. He's practicing the worst of the occult and magic. And so here is Saul, and he doesn't end as a good king. And God says, I'm going to take the kingdom from you. But he's an interesting, complex character. And I wanted to focus in on just a couple verses that will show us something very interesting about Saul and maybe point out something in our lives as well. Samuel comes to Saul in this passage here in 1 Samuel 15, and Saul has been supposed to devote all of that he finds as he has this great victory, everything to destruction. But when Samuel shows up, there's these sheep, and they're bleating and bleating, and cows, and he can hear the lowing of cows and the bleating of sheep. And so he comes up to Saul and he says, what's going on? And so Saul says, look, I wanted to reserve all of these things. I know God told me to kill all these sheep, but I wanted to reserve them for sacrifice. And here is what Samuel says to him. Verse 22, has the Lord as a delight in burnt offering and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to listen than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and presumption is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. Here's my big idea, and Samuel says it right there. Obedience is better than sacrifice. At the end of it all, I think fundamentally Saul's problem was this. He tried to do everything right on the outside. He was trusting in the ritual of sacrifice. Hey, I'm going to try to get God to do what I want by taking my actions, and he missed the heart behind it. So Samuel shows up to say, you needed to obey the word of the Lord, not try to manipulate him to do what you want him to do. Sometimes I think every one of us are Saul. Sometimes we focus on the outside. We focus on getting the words right, saying the right things, doing the right things, and we miss the heart of God. So what can we learn? What cautionary tale should we see from Saul? Let's focus on God's heart, on what truly God is after, and I think we'll see his favor in our lives. Obedience is better than sacrifice. And we'll see the other side of this tale tomorrow. I hope to see you then.